To everyone who miraculously voted for the same book in December, I need to tell you, and I mean this with all of the affection in my heart, I greatly dislike you right now. What's up, guys? I'm your teen librarian, Gina, and last month you told me to read Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This is not something I had to read in high school. Judging by the number of requests we get for it every fall, I'm assuming that many of you have had it as an assignment. Which leads me to the question which has been on my mind since page 50. Was this you guys taking advantage of the whole make somebody else read that horrible book for English? Or did you look at the previous two videos and go, this one seems to be the exact opposite of everything she enjoyed about the previous two books? Let's see what happens. I'm going to break this down into two parts, the plot and what I'm calling the purpose, because I feel like those are two very different things. The plot, when I discovered it at approximately page 62, revolves around Guy Montag, whose job as a fireman is to burn books, and the homes, various other belongings, and occasionally people surrounding them. I already knew this before starting the book. I feel like most librarians, even if they've never read it, know enough to be, yeah, that's the book about burning books. I assumed that it was government-sanctioned book burning, which it is, but it's also not. It's more that society devolved and those in power took advantage. More on that in a bit. So Montag, the fireman, is having a midlife crisis, and we follow him over the course of a few weeks as he goes from Mr. Average Joe upstanding citizen to nervous breakdown revolutionary to fugitive philosopher. And that's basically it. That is the plot. The purpose, on the other hand, actually became incredibly fascinating to me by the end of the book, and honestly made me deeply uncomfortable while I was reading. The plot was fairly straightforward. The purpose of this story encompasses the tone, the structure, the language, and all of the other elements which go into a book, and which Bradbury very clearly considered when making sure his point got across to his audience. I mentioned earlier what I knew about Fahrenheit 451 when I started is it's the book about burning books. But the book burning is not the point. It is a lens which provides readers with something physical and familiar to focus on when the actual issues in this book are incredibly abstract. Because the real issue at the heart is not government oppression keeping the huddled masses down. No, it is society's willful suppression of thought. It is 99% of the population choosing entertainment and constant stimuli rather than giving themselves time to consider, discuss, and learn. That's what made me so uncomfortable. The purpose of this book is to encourage readers to slow down, to take the time to consider, to form their own opinions and discuss them with others, lest we develop or devolve into a society like the one we see in this book, where people are constantly stimulated and thoughtlessly entertained to the point that they're trying to commit suicide without actually realizing that they're unhappy. And in this, the writing style and the pace match the content perfectly. The language is very elegant, and when everything comes together, when you realize where the story is really going, what it's really about, and how Bradbury's writing choices reflect that, it's really beautiful. And I was so bored reading it. Literally everything except the active chase scene following Beatty's murder was a legitimate nightmare scenario when it comes to my reading choices. I actually read the first 10 pages and stopped and went, wait, what did I just read? What made me so uncomfortable as the story progressed was my boredom with it. The general population in this book thrives on constant stimulation. All the action, all the climax, now. That's what I prefer reading too. So I started feeling guilty about preferring books with a lot of dialogue and wit and action, and just not being forced to think about what I'm reading. Like, am I secretly one of those people that would be burning books? Or at least standing by and letting it happen? But the further I got, the more I understood that it's not really about reading the right books. I enjoy analyzing the fiction I read. I talk to people about my theories. A lot. I throw in the occasional nonfiction. I just don't like feeling like I have to analyze the book I'm reading, especially fiction, to try and understand what's going on. And that's okay. And so is the fact that my reaction to Montag escaping the Hound was, how are there 25 more pages? Our protagonist is Guy Montag. I wouldn't really call him a hero. He's more confused. The book is written in third person limited with a very narrow scope. Everything we see and learn is from Montag's perspective. And that does not include a lot of greater world building. I said earlier the book burning did not begin as government oppression, but frankly we don't know, because Montag doesn't know. We've got two different accounts of the history of firemen at different points in the story, and Montag is shocked to learn that firemen once put out fires. Really, we have no idea about the thoughts or actions of those in power, because Montag has no idea. He is an everyman character, and the everyman in this world is very naive, almost childlike. Now, normally at this point I would discuss our other heroes and then move on to analyze our villains, but I can't, because in my opinion, there weren't any other characters. There were character-like plot devices used to show Montag's evolution. Clarice is something different than what Montag is used to, and is therefore interesting to him. Through the interaction and her disappearance, Montag comes to realize that it's not just about the books. Mrs. Montag and her friends are what our protagonist used to be, and what he could have remained. Naive and oblivious to their own unhappiness. Beatty and Faber are two of the options he had moving forward. If he followed Chief Beatty and continued to burn the books, he would have knowingly perpetuated the society. Eventually, he would have become too knowledgeable to be anything other than cynical, and while he would not actively seek death, he would welcome it in whatever form it eventually came for him. Faber is what Montag would have become if he chose to keep his head down in the city. If he got rid of the books, quit the firemen, but didn't do anything else. He would not be actively maintaining the society, but he wouldn't be doing anything to stop it or circumvent it either. Then we have the people I have come to refer to as the philosophers. These people are what Montag is actually on the path to become. They are cynical, but hopeful. Rather than attempting to lead a revolution to save all the books, or whatever, they're quietly living on the fringes of society, maintaining their cultural history, waiting for the day that everything collapses, because they know it's coming. These men are not really characters in their own right. They're exposition, clarifying for Montag and the reader what just happened, and showing not only Montag's future, but the future of this world. The philosophers are not revolutionaries. Montag is not a revolutionary. This is not a story about the people who will die for the cause, who have nothing else to live for and will see the world made right. Montag starts his journey as an everyman character, living his life in the city with only an inkling that something is wrong. He ends his journey as an everyman, waiting for the world to fall and ready to help rebuild. I think the fireman who committed suicide by hound at one of the other firehouses was actually a fireman who called in sick and had a hound sent after him, and that's how the authorities explained it. I also think that Chief Beatty was onto Montag long before the woman burned herself, and that he programmed the hound with Montag's scent so that it would growl at him as he was passing as a warning. Or maybe the hounds can smell paper, but I don't remember that though. Or maybe Montag was just paranoid because of a guilty conscience. I'm not sure why the city needed to be blown up at the end. I get that the book was written shortly after World War II, so I'm sure there's a lot of context I missed because I was focused on the slow down, take time to think aspect. Reading it today, I drew a lot of parallels to social media and the immediacy of how we get our information and take what we're finding as truth without a grain of salt. And I know those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and obviously these people are not learning from history. It just seemed very sudden. And not in a, oh wow, wait, what kind of way. It was, okay. That happened. Suddenly, I'm curious. Has this happened before? Like, is this technically a history book? And is Shakespeare the one who really created all of those plays and sonnets? Or is he just the guy who was writing them down again when books were once again legal? Is Fahrenheit 451 an important book? Yes. Is it a good book? Yes. Is it an exciting book? No. Am I likely to read anything else by Ray Bradbury? No. I think it's important and I'm glad I read it. I don't think it's an easy book to comprehend, even having read it, much less trying to have somebody else explain it to me, or trying to explain it to other people. I'm vaguely interested in watching the movie, but I don't think that anyone could do the story justice in 2 hours. And the trailer makes it seem a little too action-y, revolutionary-y, which is not the point of this book. Overall, I'm glad that so many high schools seem to have their students reading this book. Its message is very important and relevant, I think possibly more so now than when it was originally written. Going forward, I will be on the lookout for other similar books, or at least those with similar messages, to recommend to teens who enjoyed it. This story is pretty unique in my opinion. Also, it's a book commonly assigned for homework, and this is really more about your leisure time. With that in mind, I have a few books to recommend that I think you'll enjoy if you like the premise of Fahrenheit 451. The first is the Sidekick Squad series by C.B. Lee. This is a world where superpowers are common and the spaces between cities are uninhabitable. Jessica Tran comes from a family of superheroes, although she herself does not have any powers. But when her dream internship turns out to be in the lab of a supervillain, she'll begin to realize that the world she and her friends are being taught to live in may not be right, and that the history being taught isn't true. The other book I would recommend is a standalone that also has a bit of a Matrix-y vibe. Game Slaves by Guard Skinner takes place in a sci-fi near future where AIs take on the enemy role in video games, so that players can have a more challenging and realistic experience. Phoenix and his team are the best there is and enjoy what they do. But their new team member is convinced that she's more than an AI. And the longer she's with them, the more Phoenix thinks that she may not be the only one. That's it for my review of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to vote for, at this point, February's Tell Me What to Read between the 1st and the 15th of the month on the library's blog. Join us on Discord for teen programs, activities, and events, and like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, do whatever you need to do to keep up to date on what's happening for you at your library.